Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm so excited to be with you here today. My name is Laurie Kelley. I'm the Chief Philanthropy Officer and the Senior Vice President of Providence over the philanthropy operations. So we raise money for really amazing programs that we have here at Providence. And we're going to talk about a topic today that's a little bit hard for people to broach sometimes because experiencing illness can be one of life's biggest challenges. It tests us in ways both large and small, and it can suddenly upend our world. Even as we're cared for by bright, compassionate, and dedicated doctors and nurses, we sometimes feel like our disease is defining us instead of us as a person. So I'm going to be your host today again, Laurie Kelley. And as a reminder, the information that you're going to hear today is for information purposes only. For any medical questions, please reach out to your primary care or healthcare professional. And so now let's begin by introducing our guests today. With us today are Dr. Ira Byock. He is the founder and Senior Vice President for Strategic Innovation at Providence's Institute for Human Caring, and Dr. Matthew Gonzales, Chief Medical and Operations Officer at the Institute. And we want to share a few ways that you donors can help Providence on this journey toward whole person care, which is really one of the tenets of our Providence health system. So please feel free to post any questions in the chat and don't be shy about it. There's a lot of great conversation that we can have here today. And I will start with Ira, Drs. Byock and Matthew Gonzales. Can you tell us how the Institute for Human Caring defines whole person care? This is a big, broad term. So help us understand, what does this mean?
Well, Laurie, thank you for convening this live event. It's such a pleasure and really a privilege to be with you. And thanks for asking the question.
Yeah.
Matt and I and the team that we've assembled we're just trying to change the world. I often say I can't even change my own oil these days, but Matt and I know how to change healthcare in a way that can make it responsive to the real lives, the lived experience of the people who are our patients. American healthcare tends to look at its job in very transactional ways. We are here to diagnose and fix your health problems, which is true, but it's only part of what American healthcare is supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be caring for human beings, whole persons. Whole persons, yes, we have bodies, we have medical diagnoses, we need treatments, but we also have bodies that need comfort. We have bodies that need to function so that we are independent, so that we don't need help in doing the basic activities of daily living. We have people in our lives that are an integral part of who we are. We usually call them families, but whether we're related to them by bloodline or just love, they are integral to our lives. They're even integral to how we see ourselves. We're part of family networks in our psychology, in our own personhood. We have emotional realms of our personhood, and we have spiritual realms of our personhood. So we're trying to use some of the macro shifts in American healthcare, from volume-based healthcare, which is a technical kind of term about how healthcare is financed, to value-based healthcare, to refocus on not just people's diagnoses, but their lived experience within the context of their lives, their households, even their neighborhoods, attending to the things that matter most to them. And what we're doing within Providence, which is really cool, is we're showing that we can thrive as a health system by helping the people who are our patients and their families thrive and flourish within their homes and their environments, their social environments, not merely in health settings, which is what the transactional model has been.
Right. I mean, because as soon as you get a bad diagnosis, or even something that's not life-threatening, all of a sudden that's all you can think about. But the person is still that same person. They just got something else to deal with, right? So
with hopes, with fears, with worries, with things that are upsetting to them, all of that can be addressed, and it's not in tension with that transactional need for diagnosis and treatment. Quite the contrary, it actually supports that, because if people are less anxious, they're likely sleeping better. They may be eating better. They may be moving a little bit more. All of that's good for their physical health as well, of course.
Yeah.
Well,
So go ahead, Dr. Gonzales. I was just going to ask you a question.
Thanks, Laurie. As I was thinking about this, I mean, I think you're right. It is a big, broad term, and sometimes it's kind of hard to wrap your head around these like big concepts, right? Like I have had the pleasure of working with Ira now for, gosh, over 7 years, and I am deeply inspired by his vision and by founding of the Institute for Human Caring. I think sometimes the question comes like, all right, so you've got this big vision to see people as who they are, right? He talks about the people's, he just mentioned their lived experience of us as a health system trying to understand who people are. And what does that mean? I think so. Operationally for us, what that really means is that we're trying to do a better job of listening to people, trying to understand who they are at a deeper level, not just trying to hear, oh, you're nauseous, oh, you're in pain, oh, you're short of breath. Of course, those are very important things that we need to attune to and attend to. But at the same time, we, from an operational standpoint, means that we need to make sure that every patient that we take care of has a personalized care plan, that their treatments that they're receiving are consistent with what they've told us their individual goals and priorities are. We should also
dive a little bit more into that, Matt. What does that mean, a personalized care plan? Because you think you're getting that anyway, right? You get your thing from my chart and you see what's going on in there. It's mostly the medications and things like that. But what does that mean to the next level?
Yeah, so I think for me, Laurie, what that means is that we're having better discussions with people about what their options are and thinking through them and taking time to be able to do that and saying, what is it that we're really hoping for by going down this particular path? What are your worries? And so we can try to figure out and tailor make a care plan that attends to all of those individual pieces. I think it also means that we should know, for instance, who helps makes decisions with you so that that person is in the room for you. When I think about like who the right people are to have this conversation with, it's not just the patient, but it's the patient and whoever their trusted decision maker is. It's whoever can be with them to be able to help think through these things. I mean, I think you said it quite well, which is that sometimes when we hear a bad diagnosis, or even maybe not when we're hearing a bad diagnosis, but even just talking with our own clinicians, it's a lot of information to take in. Yeah. And so being able to slow down and have a companion, have somebody that we know that we have these conversations when they're around is super important to being able to know that, for instance, when we're doing a big surgery on somebody or when we're bringing them into the hospital, that we've had one of these detailed conversations so that our clinicians know that we're honoring exactly what our patients need and want from us.
And talk about either one of you in COVID, how it's been, it's been even more difficult because sometimes our partners haven't been able to come with us, or our children or parents or whatever, who's going to be the second set of ears, listening in. So that's kind of, now where people are coming back in the hospital. But what has happened? What have we learned through that experience?
That families matter.
Yeah.
That families aren't just a nicety, that they're critically important to people's well-being. The lack of visitation was by far the most difficult parts of the COVID experience, certainly for acutely ill patients. We've learned that, that planning really matters. I mean, you've talked about how hard it is to have these conversations and talk to somebody you love about what they would want if they were really sick and who they'd want to have make decisions for them and what they might want done. Those are really touchy and, sensitive, emotional topics. But when you don't have those conversations, it doesn't protect you or someone you love from becoming seriously ill. It just makes the experience even harder, more stressful when it happens. So some of this stuff, we're trying to normalize some of these conversations. At least tell me who you would trust to speak for you if, heaven forbid, you had a stroke or were in a car accident later today, right? Give me, in general, what you think you'd want that person to know and what your future doctors you'd want to know about your general orientation toward treatment if you were seriously ill. That will help us to just feel like your chart is complete. We're trying to normalize this. We ask you about your allergies, not because we think we're going to give you something that you're going to have an anaphylactic, but because it would be irresponsible not to at least have asked that question, because, some people are going to tell us, oh, I'm deathly allergic to, penicillin or whatever. And
Right.
that's important for us to know. Similarly, it's important for all adults 18 years up to tell us who they would trust to speak for them if they couldn't speak for themselves, particularly in the world of privacy, where we're protecting people's health information. If you're 20 years old and you didn't say it to your parents may not be allowed to be part of this conversation, where you, as a young adult, have been assuming that that's who the doctors would talk with. So these things
where does one put those, when you're talking, a young person, obviously, after they go to the pediatrician, sometimes they'll go to the doctor for 10 years, right? So how do you start that conversation? And then where do you document that?
You want to take that, Matt?
Yeah, just finding the mute button. Still a challenge, even in this 2022. Laurie, I think it's such an important question. One is, I think, as I was saying, normalizing the conversation. I think you're right. At 18, the truth is, when I was 18, I didn't go to a doctor for some time after that. And I assumed that,
And you're a man, so even worse.
Probably true. For myself, definitely avoided it. But I think that it's important for us to talk about this as sort of like a healthy behavior of all adults. We have these like milestones and checkpoints for health in our lives. Some of them are more fun than others. You get to vote when you're 18. You get your colonoscopy when you're 45. I think this is somewhere in between, right? That around that age, you're supposed to have a conversation with somebody who would be comfortable speaking for you. I also think it's important to talk about this because young adults in particular, some of us have great relationships with our families. I'm thankful to, but not all of us do. Yeah. And so it's important for us to be able to include even our chosen families in that discussion and to be able to say, that relationship I'm not sure that my mom or my dad would be the key person that I would want, but these people have been really supportive of my life and I want to be able to empower them to be involved in having these conversations. So having the conversation with whoever your trusted person is, and then letting us know as your healthcare system, as your healthcare doctor, telling me in an appointment, Joe's the person that's going to be able to make decisions for me just in case the worst happens. If I'm in a car accident, God forbid, but those are important things to know so that we know, A, that Joe's somebody we should be involved with, and B, even what Joe's cell phone number is, just an important piece so that we're involving the right people in your healthcare.
Yeah. Talk about how you guys are really taking this concept out to the clinics and our hospitals. We've got 55 hospitals, 1,100 clinics. We're a huge system. We're in 7 states. So how will this big idea, which is actually quite simple, but not to scale. So how are you going about, taking this on the road and making it real?
It starts at the very top. Goal-aligned care is within our healthcare system strategic plan. It's a priority. It's part of how we define quality operationally within Providence. With that as a guide, then we can say, well, we're going to operationalize this by educating clinicians in skill building with something we call the advanced communication training, which we had done in a 2.5 hour training on site. We moved it online during COVID, which has probably been a real advance because now it can be done in a kind of an asynchronous manner. You don't have to all come to the same meeting room at the same time, and it's more cost effective. We do case-based training so that you get to practice having these conversations. Mm-hmm. We do similar trainings, or not trainings, but education, just-in-time education with patients and families. We use some very wonderfully patient-friendly plain speak videos to introduce these concepts to patients and families, explaining to them that at Providence, this is just normal. You will be asked about things like who you trust to speak for you and what your main priorities are. We've made it easier to educate patients in this regard. We've done this in multiple languages so that we're meeting people where they are at. We've also, with Matt's creative genius, really helped to transform the electronic health record, which in Providence we use something called Epic, which is one of the major electronic health record vendors. And we've tweaked it, we've tailored it to our needs and priorities within Providence. So we're making the right way easier to have these conversations, to document these conversations, and then to find those documented notes of the conversations in seconds. You don't have to, a busy clinician doesn't have to wonder whether one of these conversations have happened, right? Just that fast. You can open the patient's chart and see it.
It's great.
Laurie, I would say you're right. It's an easy concept, but like, as you can tell from Ira talking about, like the number of things that need to come together in order to make it happen is a lot. And truthfully, that's why I'm at Providence. You know, if you looked at my job history before I came to Providence, I think I had 4 different jobs over 5 years. And it was because I wanted to do what Ira said, which is change the world. I wanted to recognize that, like, I wanted other people to recognize that it was possible to do this at scale. And I jumped around to a lot of different places because I couldn't find a place that really was invested in making sure that these principles of whole person care, of knowing who people are, of listening to them, to understanding them at a deep level, and then delivering healthcare based on that. I couldn't find another place where that was possible. And that's what keeps me here, is that it's hard work, but it's fun work, and it's great work to be able to engage in, because we do really have support from the highest leaders within Providence, all the way through all of the clinicians who are greatly involved in this and loving doing the work.
Can I comment on Matt? Matt's so right. That's why I'm at Providence as well. So, you know, everything that we do, everything that we've been talking about, everything the Institute for Human Caring does, flows directly from the mission, vision, and core values of the health system. That's not just words, because that mission, vision, and core values matters to the C-suite. It matters to our board of trustees, right? And what we're doing is anchored in a tangible way within that. We advance the mission, vision, core values, and strat plan, the strategic plan of the organization. I have colleagues in medicine across the country who can't imagine how we've accomplished so much now I've been here for 8 years. Because they're doing similar work, and I came from a wonderful situation where I was doing similar work, and I've tried to explain, and I sometimes do workshop sessions on how deliberate change happens. Say, if you can't locate your initiative, let's say it's an advanced care planning initiative, within the mission, vision, and core values and the strategic plan of your organization, there's only 2 possibilities for what's wrong. Either you're doing the wrong work, or you're working in the wrong organization. Right? We're doing the right work in the right organization. And so we're making change at scale.
Yeah. If anyone's listening in right now and you have a question for either of the doctors, please put it in the chat and we'll get to you. These are hard conversations to have. Another thing I wanted to ask you guys about that you have piloted and, more than piloted, right, is the advanced directive. We had that conversation, I remember one time, Ira, on what was called Decision Day, which is when an annual day that people actually are supposed to have those conversations about having an advanced directive. And you guys have taken that upon yourself to make that process really simplified. So talk a little bit about that and why that's so important.
I can start. Advanced directives have been the most important way for people to convey their wishes in the future, who they want to speak for them, and you know, what they would want to have done, at least in a general way. But they've been very difficult to accomplish. And with all the concerted effort over, I mean, I've been working on this issue since literally 1980. And, you know, still a third or less of American adults have advanced directives. We've actually tackled the problem in an innovation-driven way. We've said, well, what stops people from doing this? One is that, you know, it's emotionally scary. So we've tried to normalize it and say, we just are asking everybody about any adult because it's like your allergies. It's not about whether we think you're going to be well or die or anything like that. We're just, you're a human being, and every adult should have that. Secondly, many of the advanced directive forms have kind of menus of treatments that you would want or don't want. Do you want CPR? Would you want to be on a breathing machine? Would you want dialysis if your kidneys failed? And it goes all the way down, which is a really kind of ridiculous thing to ask somebody to think about the future and some condition that they may be in, and whether that's a car accident where they might get better within a week or two, or the very, very end stage of cancer in which they're just, the best hope is to die gently. Those are the answers would be different. So we redesign things. Oh, and the second obstacle is for most of these, you need a notary or you need two witnesses who are not employed by the health system and not relatives. So we redesigned the system. We redesigned our advanced directive form to make it one page. Who do you want to speak for you? If you're unable to speak for yourself, please give us that person or person's contact information. 2, in a general way, do you want everything done, nothing done, just focus on comfort, or a balanced approach in the middle? And if you don't know which of those 3 approaches you would want, just check the box that says, I don't know, I trust the person I just named, and then sign it within the presence of a witness or notary. Or we've created something through Providence policy called the Trusted Decision Maker form, which does not require witnesses or a notary. It is signed by a physician or a nurse practitioner or physician assistant under a statement that says the person verbally expressing their wishes today has decisional capacity. So I'm attesting that the person knows what they're saying, and I'm going to enter into the chart this trusted decision maker form, which looks very much like an advanced directive, but doesn't meet the statutory requirements. But through Providence policy, in absence of an advanced directive, can help guide decision making. And then again, to Matt's credit and his design talents, that trusted decision maker form with one click prints out a preliminary advanced directive, which with the same form and the information that the doctor just inputted into that can be signed in the presence of a witness or notary and become that formal advanced directive. So we're trying to make the right way the easy way within our practices. We're also tracking this, by the way, with dashboards so that managers, leading clinicians and the managers of clinics can do continuous quality improvement and improve their performance against this quality standard.
That's great. Really good. Matt, anything to add on that?
Yeah, Laurie, I think as I was listening to Ira have this reflection, we started calling this short form advanced directive the easy form, the easy form.
Easy, like the taxes when you're
it's 22. Exactly, yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, many of us who would qualify to do a 1040 EZ, like that's super easy, but some of the advanced directives, they're great. They're really wonderful, but they're very comprehensive. And you almost look at this like 12 to 18 page document and end up thinking, wow, I kind of need TurboTax to like boil down all these decisions and these things. Mm-hmm. And so we're trying to take a very pragmatic approach to this, which is to say, like, what are the barriers? How can we make this easier for people? Because I think when you sit down in a room of folks and say, like, do you know who you'd want to make decisions for you? 80, 90% of the room says yes. It's just that we've made it too difficult to be able to do this. And that's really what the Institute is about trying to break down these barriers within Providence, within healthcare as a whole, within the American healthcare system, so that we can all get to this broader vision that healthcare should recognize who we are and see us for who we are. And that's what keeps me coming to work every day.
I mean, I think, when you're dealing with serious illness, and especially something leading to death, that's when the true humanity comes out for people. And it's something that you're not experienced with. And so it's so daunting, and to have all these tools and to have people, come in the room that are talking to the patient, not the caregiver. That's another thing, sometimes you witness and the person's still there, right? They can answer the questions. And so another, kind of switching gears before we're off today, we do a lot in palliative care too. And a lot of people, they feel like palliative care is not a good word. It's like hospice, and hospice is scary. That means someone's dying. So So talk about palliative care and your approach to this, and how palliative care can be 20 years of care, right? So talk a little bit about what you guys have revolutionized in palliative care, because you have done so much good in this area too.
Oh, well, I'll just say, Ira can maybe talk about the innovations, but palliative care is such a novel, amazing, unique way of delivering care, which is this concept of whole person care at its core, right? Recognizing who people are, helping to improve their quality of life, helping people to feel as good as they can. I think you're right. It's unfortunate that it's become a bit of a hard word for folks.
Yeah.
But the reality is people can deliver and have palliative care for years. I mean, I think I once took care of a woman who was in her early 30s and having nausea while going through chemotherapy for stage 2 breast cancer. She's alive. It's over a decade later, but I was able to see her and help listen to her problem, understand the etiology, the reason for her nausea, change her medications, and be able to get her back on track for her chemotherapy. It's about living the best possible life while you have serious illness. And I'm proud to say that Providence has really invested in that.
Great. Ira?
Similarly, serious illness, palliative care is an interdisciplinary team approach for people with their families who are going through serious illness. Serious illness impacts the whole person. It doesn't just impact your body or your organs. It impacts your emotions, your family, your sense of yourself, your sense of the future, your hopes, your fears. Everything changes, and it's a big assault. You know this deeply, personally. I know, Laurie. Palliative care responds to that multidimensional experience of illness with an interdisciplinary approach, with experts who can sort of hold you and your family in their gloved hands and be gentle with you, guiding you through this. And as we do that, not uncommonly, people get better. It's not about giving up hope. It's about, yes, playing the cards that you're dealt in the best way we can. And not everybody we care for survives. Nobody survives. Eventually, we all are going to face the end of our lives. But many times, patients do better. They live longer because of this coordinated approach that is centered within patients and families, coordinating care, keeping you out of the hospital when your needs can be met at home, explaining, communicating with you and your family, making plans, preventing crises that we can foresee, because this is what we do for a living. And like Matt, I have a handful of patients that I met in palliative care and I'm still in touch with. I mean, there's a 16-year-old young woman who I'm still in touch with, who was at Dartmouth for most of a year, and then was being seen for a bowel, large and small intestines that simply weren't working. I and our team with the surgeons worked with her and her family. She ended up having a multi-organ transplant of most of her intra-abdominal organs, and she's thriving now 8 years later. So, I don't know how she would have done without the support that we were able to provide to her and her family.
Well, the work that you do is life-changing. It is adding a lot to the Providence experience. It's a lot of work that we do not get reimbursed for. So a lot of these programs Providence is covering, we'd like to extend them and do even more through philanthropy. So if you're interested in supporting us, I will give you a few more details at the end here. But just to close out, I just wanted to give you guys kind of a wrap-up comment if you have anything else you'd like to add that we didn't cover today. Whoever wants to go first.
I've been a clinician since 1978, 79. And I've been wanting to change the world since then, seeing opportunities to meet people's needs in the context of their families and communities. This is the culmination of the work that I've done. I come to work every day exhilarated because we're actually making change at scale. And it's such a pleasure to work within an organization that really gets it, sees that this is the bright future, and wants to be part of sharing that bright vision with others.
Yeah, so well said, Ira. I mean, I think for myself, I've said a few times now, this is what keeps me coming to work. And it's fun and exciting to be able to be reinventing and thinking about how healthcare could be. because it isn't, we don't always get it right. Not everybody gets it right all the time, but we're continuing on this learning journey and trying to make it as good for people as possible. And that's just like an amazing thing. So I'm grateful for people tuning in, for being able to listen to us talk about this, because it's an important part of our future together.
And grateful for you, Laurie. Thank you for all you do.
No, I'm just moved by the work that you do and the stories that you tell and the changes that you've made. It's pretty incredible. So thank you so much, Ira and Matt, for joining us today about finding out more about the ways whole person care can transform the healthcare experience for patients and their families. And thank you all for joining us. We could spend so much more time talking about the good that people have done. I wish we had some questions today, because I think people are shy to ask questions about this. But please be frank with your families and reach out to us, if you do have some questions about how to tackle some of these difficult conversations. And if you're interested in learning more, please go to the Institute for Human Caring website. It is packed with great stories and podcasts and information. Read more about Institute for Human Caring on our Providence National Foundation site as well. And you can also support the Institute's work to make more person-centered care available to patients of every age and every stage of life across Providence and all of our communities across 7 states. For instance, your gift to the Institute for Human Caring makes possible advanced communication training initiative that we talked about today to fund training for clinicians to help them work with seriously ill patients, to create highly personalized care plans that are consistent with the patient's values, preferences, and priorities. We want to meet you where you are. And also the work of taking successful regional models and scaling them nationally for high quality, accessible care throughout our 7-state community. With you, we can change the course of healthcare. So to learn more about whole person care, please visit foundation.providence.org/WPC or instituteforhumancaring.org. And to donate, please go to give.providence.org/WPC. Or learn more about this exciting work by scheduling a call with Lindsay Oldridge. We'll put her name and contact information in the chat here. And to learn more about all of Providence initiatives, programs, services, hospitals, clinics. If you're looking for ways to find medical care for yourself, please visit us online at providence.org. So please make sure to follow us on social media. We're everywhere. So Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and even TikTok, I think. Maybe not, but come and see us. And thank you again for being a person of Providence and learning more about the many wonderful programs we have. Have a great rest of the week. Take care.